Hello everyone, good morning. Today is 8th of September and welcome to the Hindu newspaper analysis discussion. So guys, in the today's video, we are going to take the entire analysis of the Hindu newspaper, and before that I would like to tell you that you can download this explainer PDF from the Telegram channel and you can use this particular PDF along with the video, and the link for the Telegram channel has been given in the description box. Now guys, first of all, let's take the overview of the entire newspaper in order to understand that which articles are going to be important into the today's newspaper. So here we have the page number 1 of the Delhi edition of the Hindu. So the first article is a political article, not important for our UPSC examination. Now think tanks are two think tanks face tax survey. So guys, these are the think tanks where some income tax rates have been made, not important for your UPSC examination. Then jobs growth key priorities, not inflation. So we'll see this particular article. The similar article has also been given on the business page. Then Kejriwal launches Make in India #1 campaign from Hisar. After that guys, moving on, then in the city section, basically the regional issues, tenders, advertisements and all these things have been provided, not important for the UPSC examination. So directly we'll reach to the editorial page, and the first editorial talks about the ideology, how it muddled the inflation control in India. So we'll see this particular article and we'll see that how the Anglo-American influence is there in the policy making. So we'll see that particular article. Then the hits and misses into TANGEDCO's tariff petition. So we'll briefly be seeing this particular article as what is talking about. Then guys, after that, the spirit of 1971. So basically this article talks about the India and Bangladesh cooperation that is going on. So guys, we have already seen yesterday, that is the Bangladesh Prime Minister is on the 4-day visit to India. Now guys, that 4-day visit has started from the Monday and it will be going to culminate now. And as this particular thing will happen, in the last we'll see all the developments with respect to the India and Bangladesh once this particular visit will be culminated. Then evolving role of CSR, we'll see this particular article with respect to the corporate ethics. Time for a joint space exercise, good article with respect to the exam. We'll see this also. Then in the text and the context page, content moderation on Wikipedia. So guys, this particular article will see with respect to the safe harbor policies that exist in India. So that particular dimension we'll see. Then the mandatory requirement for the packaged commodities. So guys, this particular article talks about the legal metrology packaged commodity rules 2011 and just the hairline details. For example, what particular section 2 section 9(1), section rule 6(1), all these things are provided. Such things have been discussed. For example, much of a UPSC substance is not there in this particular article. Then the text and the context, building an image classifier for sorting images. Okay, so the article is not important again for our UPSC examination. Then guys, moving on, cabinet approves PMSRI scheme. We'll see this particular article. After that, in this particular capacity, positive secularism is allowed in India. We'll see this particular article also. Then coal scam, CBI searching, IT department searches in 100 locations. Okay, then guys, coming to back to the page number 11. So here the political news have been carried. Opposition unity against BJP to expand. India faces threat of civil war, says Gehlot. Okay, however, with respect to the examination, much substance is not there into these particular articles, so no need to go here, just we'll be avoiding that. Then after that, breather for coal plants. We'll see this particular article as what is it talking about. After that guys, Army undertakes major infrastructure drive along the line of actual control LAC in the Arunachal Pradesh. So in the past we have seen this particular thing that the China has carried a lot of intervention with respect to the infrastructure around LAC. So in that particular response, India is also scaling the LAC development. Then moving on, UK returnees can finish medical courses elsewhere. So yesterday also we have seen this particular thing that many of the medical students which were doing their studies into the Ukraine, they have to come back to India because of this Russia-Ukraine war that started. Now how they'll be going to complete their education? So in that particular capacity, they can take the admission into the Indian colleges and can finish their education. Then after that, Lancet series on metabolic health in works. So guys, this is a new Lancet document that will be released. So up till now it has not been released. They are working on this particular thesis. So therefore right now no need to see this particular article. WHO to stress prevention of the non-communicable diseases. So guys, the non-communicable diseases, the health, the lifestyle disease, etc., they are becoming the major killer. So on that particular thing, WHO will stress. Okay, so basically in this particular capacity, these things have been provided, that how the non-communicable diseases are becoming the silent killers. Then moving on, After that, in this, Xi Putin sets to hold talks in Uzbekistan. So basically, basically, guys, here we see that SCO summit will be held in the Uzbekistan, and in the SCO summit, okay, the Xi Jinping, Putin are going to talk, and even the Indian Prime Minister is going to participate in that. So we'll see this particular SCO meeting when it will happen. Okay, then coming to the business page. So inflation is not a red lettered priority for government now, says finance minister. We'll see this particular article. Maruti, corporate trends, etc. are being talked about. Then we have the sports page. Okay, so guys, let's now discuss all the relevant articles one by one in the detail. Now starting up, so today, now every class we start with the GS quotation. So today we'll take the quote from the William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare says that no legacy is so rich as honesty. Now no legacy, no, basically it has been provided that the honesty is the most important, footprint that a person can live, and the legacy that is created by following the honesty, it is the most productive one, it is the most fruitful one, it inspires the generations to come, and when generations see the legacy of the honesty, that is something which brings an ethical, moral and positive change in the society. So honesty is the most important legacy that a person can leave for the generations to come. Now this particular idea can be used in GS paper number 4, ethics. Within the ethics there is a topic of the foundational values. So within the foundational values we can use this particular idea. Now let's take the first article. Okay, so first article, it's talking about that the cabinet has approved the PMSRI scheme. Now first of all, this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 2, the social justice. Within the social justice, in the topics of the education, we'll see this particular topic. Okay, now first of all, before going in this particular article, I would like to give you some of the background so that you can understand this particular article better. So background goes like this, that actually India had announced the National Education Policy 2020. And as per the National Education Policy 2020, the Indian education is to be developed. Now the NEP 2020 talks about the school education as well as it's talk about the higher education in India. Now the PMSRI scheme that we'll see here, it is about the school education reforms in India. Now understand this particular thing, that NEP 2020 has talked about many number of things. For example, it has replaced the 10+2 system of education with 5+3+3+4 system of education. Now guys, here it has been provided that in the NEP, the foundational skills of the children will be emphasized more. Earlier, the focus on preschool education was not there, but now in the NEP 2020, the focus onto the early education, early learning will also be given. Fine. Now understanding that further, NEP also talks about that basically the output of the education, okay, the learning capabilities of the students are needed to be enhanced. Okay, so to fulfill the spirit of NEP, basically the PMSRI scheme has been announced. Now let's see the PMSRI scheme, and then we'll see that how the PMSRI scheme is going to fulfill the goals of the new education policy 2020. Now first of all, the PMSRI, it stands for the Prime Minister's Schools for Rising India. Prime Minister's Schools for Rising India. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that this particular scheme will be implemented to fulfill, I told you, NEP 2020 policy. Now under this particular scheme, 14,500 government schools across the country will be covered. Now as of now, when we talk about, there are nearly 10 lakh government schools, and out of the 10 lakh government schools, 14,500 schools will be covered. Now first of all, understand this particular thing guys, that there is one particular condition that is there, and only after fulfilling that particular condition, the schools will be covered under the PMSRI scheme. Now the schools which will be selected under the PMSRI, the state government has to agree that they will be fulfilling all the goals of the NEP. So whatever the direction will be given to those state governments by the Ministry of Education in regard to the NEP, all those particular things have to be fulfilled. Only then the school will be covered under the PMSRI scheme. So thus the basically state government has to provide this particular thing, that all the commitments will be fulfilled. Now all these particular schools will be monitored vigorously. It will be seen that whether the NEP's principles are being followed or not. Now what will happen in this particular scheme? So basically guys, under this particular scheme, 2 crore rupees will be provided to every school. 2 crore rupees will be transferred directly to the school's account through the direct benefit transferred. Now out of this 2 crore rupees funding, 40% of the fund will be can be used by the school at its own discretion. Okay, this will be the flexi fund. This will be the flexible fund. For example guys, let's say that in one particular school they don't have the sports complex, or they don't have a basketball court, they don't have a football ground, so they can use the 40% of the fund for their own needs. However, the 60% of the fund has to be used onto the direction of the government. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the PMSRI scheme, under the PMSRI scheme, the school quality assessment framework will be prepared. School quality assessment framework will be prepared, and under this assessment framework, the key performance indicators, KPIs, will be measured. Now guys, what are the KPIs? KPIs, it stands for key performance indicators. Just a minute. It stands for the key performance indicators. Now guys, what will happen here? Here the students will be evaluated, for example their academic performance, fine, their attendance, that whether they are coming into the schools or not, their participation into many of the other academic activities, their participation into the co-curricular activities. So on all these particular things, the students' progress will be tracked. It will be seen that all the students, what is their average attendance, what is their average marks, what is their average academic participation, non-academic participation. So this particular kind of a dashboard will be prepared where all those performance will be measured. This is called as measuring the KPIs, that is the key performance indicators. Now guys, in this particular capacity, the scheme also provides that a student registry will be prepared for tracking the enrollment and learning progress of the school. Now understand this particular thing, that we as a part of NEP, National Education Policy 2020, are aiming for the gross enrollment ratio of 100%. It means that every child between the age of 6 to 14 years needs to be enrolled into the school. So in order to track the enrollment, basically the student registry will be prepared. Okay, learning progress will be made. Okay, now guys, understand this particular thing, that repeatedly many of the agencies, for example, the annual status of education report released by the NGO Pratham, have repeatedly provided this particular thing, that even the students of class 5 are not able to understand the text of the class 2. They are not able to do the basic mathematical operations of class 2. The students of class 5 are not able to do that. So basically learning gaps are high in Indian schools. Okay, so learning progress will also be measured as the part of this PMSRI scheme. Then improvement in learning outcomes of each child to achieve levels above state and national average. So basically these 14,000 schools which will be selected under the PMSRI, they will focus that their learning output should be above than the state average as well as the national average. Linking of school with the higher educational institutions. Now understand this particular thing guys, that when we talk about the gross enrollment rate of the schools, it is reaching nearly 100%, but at the same time in the higher education, the gross enrollment rate is very much less. So what happens? The students, they drop out after the class 10th, or they drop out after the class 12th. They are not going for the higher education. But as we have the young demography, we need to have a more educated, more skilled, and students who have different vocations at their hand. For that, higher education is important. So basically schools will be linked with the higher education system, so that that transition happens to the direct high colleges. Now entrepreneurial ecosystem will also be developed. Now understand this particular thing guys, that we in India have the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. Government is also running the Startup India scheme. So entrepreneurial ecosystem will also be developed. The students can rather than they can become the job creators. So that is something that will be provided. Then basically a focus will be made also onto the value inculcation. Now understand that when we talk about the value inculcation, since the Kothari Commission came in 1960s, after that the 1968 education policy, National Education Policy of 1968, they have talked about that values are very important part. Okay, and the value based education needs to be given. Now value based education also builds the character, and when we talk about the ethics and morality can only be taught by the value education. Now when we talk about the guys, there are certain unique values of Bharat. Okay, there is the consciousness of duties towards the society, responsibility towards the nation building. So the values of Bharat, okay, realization of duties towards the nation building, all these particular things will also be focused. So basically academic excellence, non-academic excellence, fine, entrepreneurship, okay, and the value based education all will be focused in the PM-Shri schemes, and the government will monitor all these 14,000 schools that will be selected under the PM-Shri scheme. Now understand this particular thing, guys, that at the same time the NEP is also being criticized by the many of the state governments. So let's discuss the criticism of the NEP also one by one. Now the first criticism that has been there is by the Tamil Nadu government. Now Tamil Nadu government says that what is happening in the NEP, there is a centralization of the education that is being carried. Now see, when we talk about the education, okay, school education particularly, it is a subject under the state list. It is under the subject under the state list in the Schedule 7 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so it is being a state subject, why the center government is imposing the NEP onto the state government? So the Tamil Nadu says that this is a kind of a one size fit all policy that is being imposed on all the state governments. Now all the state governments don't have the same problem. Some states have the problem of infrastructure, some states have the problem of human resource, some states have the problem that their human resource is good, their infrastructure is good, but they have struck at a one particular level in terms of education improvement. So their different problems have. So basically when there is a NEP which is being imposed on every state, one size fit all approach has been adopted, which is not good. Rather, customization of education needs to be carried in India. So such thing is not being carried by NEP, so therefore they criticize NEP. Second criticism of NEP is the three language policy. Now see, this three language policy dispute is also going on since 1968. Now what is this three language policy? It is being provided that at least three languages are needed to be taught. For example, the states from the South India, they need to teach, fine, they can teach English, they can teach Hindi, and one regional language or one mother tongue or native language, fine, they can teach. For example, let's say if there are the schools in the Tamil Nadu, they can teach English, they can teach Hindi, and they can teach Tamil. So these are the three languages that are to be taught. When the North India is concerned, they are to be taught the English, the Hindi, and then one language of other Indian language, preferably the language of South India, that is either it could be Tamil, it could be Malayalam, it could be Kannada. Okay, so basically here there have been apprehensions that it is the imposition of the Hindi. Okay, now Hindiization of the South India, it has been the long contention since the 1960s. So since the 1960s, it has been assumed that the center government wants to impose the Hindi language. So Hindiization, it is a kind of a concern. So therefore this three language policy is not being liked. This three language policy has been repeated in NEP 2020 also, but at the same time, way back in 2020, Ministry of Education has issued a clarification and had said that no state will be imposed with this three language policy. If they want to adopt it, if they feel comfortable, they can adopt. If they don't want, no problem. Then after that, basically there is one more provision that is being provided, that there should be the mandatory school entry at 3 years. The moment a child will be 3-year-old, he has to be enrolled into the school. Now it has been provided that it could leave many of the marginalized communities at a disadvantage, because many of the marginalized communities, many of the scheduled caste people, tribals particularly, fine, they don't send their schools at such an early age. Okay, so that is a kind of a problem. Moreover, guys, vocational courses will be taught after the class 6. Vocational courses will be taught after the class 6. Now what are these vocational courses? You might have heard that once a student will be reached into the class 6, they can learn coding, they can learn programming, okay, and all these kind of things. So these are the vocational skills that are being taught. Now it has been provided that these vocational skills, Once a child will learn this particular skill, he will be inclined to earn, he will inclined to make a livelihood, he'll not go for the higher educations, and in that particular thing what will happen, the long term skills will not be built. So this is something that has been provided, and this focus on building the vocations, etc., it has also been called as the blue collarization. It has also been called as the blue collarization of education. So blue collarization of education means that just giving the minimum education to build workers, that is something that has been criticized, okay, but it has been appreciated also, that this is something which will build the critical skills into the children. So that approach is also there. So these are, guys, all the issues in this capacity. I hope that you have understood it, and now we'll move to the next article. Breather for coal plants draws anguish. Okay, now this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 3 environment. GS paper number 3 environment. Okay, now before going in this particular article, guys, let's take some of the background. Okay, so background goes something like this, that what has happened basically, first of all, in 2021, India has participated into the COP26, Conference of Parties 26. In the COP26, we have provided that by 2070 we will adopt the carbon neutrality. Moreover, guys, at the same time, pollution is becoming a very big problem in India, and particularly when we talk about the North India, the winter pollution problem is very problematic. Okay, these are certain things that are going on. Now, guys, when we talk about India presently, more than 50% of electricity, around 50 to 53% of electricity presently in the India, it comes from the coal-fired power plants. Now, the coal-fired power plants, they are notorious on many particular fronts. Number one, coal-fired power plants, they have high carbon emissions. And secondly, the coal-fired power plants, they also releases certain toxic gases. Fine. For example, the sulfur dioxide, SO2, then nitrogen oxides are released, mercury is released, and carbon monoxide, and many such harmful gases are also released by the coal-fired power plants. Now, understand this particular thing, that when these harmful gases are being released, it impacts the citizens' health and citizens' well-being. Now, understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the article number 21, right to life, it talks about the right to clean air also. Article 21 talks about the right to clean air also, and in that particular capacity, even the National Green Tribunal and Supreme Court has repeatedly asked the government that they need to do something so that the pollution and the impact of pollution from the coal-fired power plants can be mitigated, can be minimized. Now, in this particular capacity, guys, what has happened? The Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has come out with the draft notifications. It has provided that the coal-fired power plants, they need to install the devices by which the pollution that they are emitting can be minimized. They need to first clean the air, and only clean air could be released, and they need to extract the traces of sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, mercury, etc. Now, guys, this particular notification came in 2015, and the time was given to the coal-fired power plant till 2016 that they need to install the equipment to contain the emission of these particular pollutants. Okay, but now what has happened? We are in 2022. Till this time, these particular things have not been meted out. Now, guys, if I give you that what's the progress, so according to the study by the Center for Science and Environment, CSE, according to the study of the CSE, it provides that till now only 4% of the India's coal power capacity has installed equipment to control the SO2 emission. Okay, sulfur dioxide emission, only 4% plant have developed that particular equipment. At the same time, around 41% of the coal-fired power plants, they have identified the vendors for equipment. Just vendors have been identified. Okay, and 55% of the coal-fired plants, okay, 55% of the capacity, they have not taken any concrete steps to meet this particular thing. And guys, because of that particular thing, the article number 21 of the citizens is being impacted every single day. Now what has happened? So now the deadline has again been extended. Earlier the deadline was extended to 2022. Okay, earlier the deadline was extended to 2022. Now this deadline has been extended to 2025, 2026. So there are certain categories. For example, certain coal-fired power plants are within the cities. Certain coal-fired power plants are within the 10-kilometer area of the city. So different deadlines have been given. So deadlines in some cases have been given to 2024. For example, I can show you here. Okay. Yes, just for example, power plants within a 10-kilometer radius of the NCR and in the vicinity of cities with a population of more than 1 million, they have been given 2024 deadline. After that, power plants within a 10-kilometer radius of critically polluted area, they have been given a deadline of 2025, and other cities have been given a deadline of 2026. Now you don't need to remember that which type of power plant have been given which year's deadline. So we can just simply remember that the deadlines have been given ranging from 2024 to 2026. Okay, now the date is not important. We need to see this particular range. Now the question, what's the question? Question is that originally this particular deadline was to be reached in 2017, then it got revised to 2022, and now it has been revised to 2024 bare minimum. So basically this is not something right. Okay, government has to take the concrete steps, and basically article 21 is the fundamental right which cannot be violated at any concern, but it is being violated every day because of the inaction that has been there. So guys, we need to be very serious on this particular front. Okay, so this is the entire issue that has come. I hope that you have understood it, and now we'll move to the next article. Guys, just you can note down this particular last point, that only 4% of the plants, they have installed the equipment. Okay, now moving to the next one, content moderation on Wikipedia. Okay, now this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 3, as well as GS paper number 2. Fine. Social media intermediaries. Okay, social media intermediaries, their rights, their responsibilities, okay, and their duties. Okay, social media intermediaries. Now let's understand this particular article first of all. Basically guys, what has happened, I would like to tell you a little bit of a background first. What has happened? So basically recently India-Pakistan match was going on, and in this India-Pakistan match, a cricketer Arshdeep, he dropped a catch, and ultimately what happened? Ultimately Pakistan won the match. Now what we cannot conclude that it was because of that catch that dropped they won the match, or there was some other conditions, because the sports, they are always very much unpredictable. However, in the sports such kind of incidents happen. So one of a cricketer dropped the match. After that, what happened on the Wikipedia, the page containing that cricketer's information, that page got vandalized. It was said that that cricketer belonged to certain outfits that have been banned in India, and all such kind of things were written. Some certain wrong things were written about that particular cricketer on the Wikipedia page. Now basically the question comes that how such information came on the Wikipedia page, and what is the responsibility of the Wikipedia. So the content moderation policy of Wikipedia has become questionable. Okay, now guys, understand this particular thing, that you don't need to go and you don't need to deep dive into a lot of technical issues, because they are not important for your examination. What is important for examination? The policy point. And in that policy, we are not only concerned about the Wikipedia, we are concerned about all the social media intermediaries, platforms, these encyclopedias. What is the policy in that particular respect? That policy aspect, academic aspect, we need to see. Now first of all, when we talk about the Wikipedia, it is a crowdsource platform. What does this CSP means? Simply it means that there is no authors that have been hired by the Wikipedia, or there are no official content writers. Rather, the citizens can update the pages onto the Wikipedia. They can write the information about in the Wikipedia, but they have to give a source that okay, from where they have got the information. So it is a peer created. It is a peer created encyclopedia. Peer created means that we people contribute into the Wikipedia. Even if you want, you can update or edit the page of the Wikipedia. That's the case there. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that basically a question comes that, let's say, on a platform there is some information that is there. For example, you take the example of Facebook. So Facebook is a social media intermediary. There is some information onto the Facebook. So will the Facebook be responsible for that information or not? In the same way, there is Wikipedia. So in Wikipedia, let's say there is some information. So can Wikipedia be held responsible for the information that is lying there? Yes or no? What's the policy in this particular matter? So basically, guys, when we talk about this particular thing, there is a safe harbor that comes in between. Safe harbor. What is a safe harbor? Safe harbor is a provision into the IT Act, not only in India, but in most of the countries, the safe harbor provision is there. Safe harbor means that if there is any information on a website, social media platform, then that social media platform will not be responsible for that particular information. That is a safe harbor protection that is given. Now in India, the safe harbor is given as per the section 79 of the Information Technology Act 2000. It means that if there is some information on Facebook, if there is some information on Twitter, if there is some information on YouTube, on Wikipedia, these companies cannot be held responsible for that particular information. But then there are certain conditions in this particular capacity. Condition number one is that this section 79 protection can only be enjoyed if the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021 are followed. So basically, IT Rules 2021, in the nutshell, IT Rules 2021, if they follow. Now guys, what is this IT Rules 2021? In this particular rule, there were certain obligations that were put on the social media intermediaries. For example, they have to appoint a grievance redressal officer. If they get any complaint about the information that is being circulated, they have to remove that particular information. Such kind of guidelines were to be given, and if they accept the guidelines, they get the safe harbor protection. Now most of the social media intermediaries have accepted these 2021 guidelines, and they are under the safe harbor protection. So in that particular case, now even if any information is there onto the Wikipedia cannot be held personally responsible in that particular capacity. Now guys, understand this particular thing. Here it has been provided that whenever the social media platform is there, social media intermediary is there, they should not allow to host or upload on their platform any information that is false, that is untrue, or that wants to mislead or harass a particular person. Now, if any information they found that it is there on their platform, they have to remove. Now, basically, how they will get the knowledge of that particular information? When it will be assumed that they got the knowledge of that particular information. So it will be assumed that they got the knowledge. Number one, if the court has notified them that okay, such information is existing and you have to remove. And second is, if there is an appropriate agency, okay, government agency or any such agency, if they had given them information that such information is existing there, the moment they get that information, they have to remove it. Now guys, as of now, even the court did not give any order, any other agency did not get any order, but the Wikipedia themselves removed that particular information. Okay, and they had also provided that there are only trusted editors that can edit the page onto the Wikipedia. This step they have also taken. So in this capacity, can the Wikipedia be held responsible? No. They get the protection under the safe harbor under the section 79 of the IT Act. Okay, why they get the protection? Because there was the information that was existing, okay, and they removed that particular thing even when the court did not send a notice, appropriate agency did not send a notice. Okay, ideally after sending their notice, they have to remove the information, but they removed it earlier, so therefore they'll still enjoy the protection. So this is guys all this particular thing, and this safe harbor, the IT rules, they become very much into the news into the 2021. So because of that particular thing also, this article is important one. Now we'll move to the next one. The evolving role of CSR funding and CSR in funding NGO. So basically, guys, this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 2, GS paper number 2, and GS paper number 4. So in GS paper number 2, the NGO sector is mentioned. Okay, the NGO sectors and its role into the development is mentioned, and GS paper number 4, corporate ethics is mentioned. Corporate ethics. So with respect to GS 4 and GS paper number 2, we'll see this particular article. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the COVID-19 pandemic, after that there was a lot of, now in the COVID-19 pandemic, lockdown came. Because of that particular lockdown, the economic sufferings of the people came. People lost their livelihood. Then there was the need for health, there was the need for medicines. Okay, a lot of support was needed, and in that capacity what happened, localized social support came. Now not only the government support, but the localized social support was given by NGOs, non-governmental organization. So fine, this is something that is happening. What they did, they helped in the loss of livelihood that happened. They helped the vulnerable communities. They established the food banks. Then provided some of the health facilities, medicine, etc. Oxygen concentrator were provided. Fine, medical oxygen cylinders were provided. Other medical supports were provided by the NGOs. So they have helped a lot during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now understand that when we talk about the NGO, there is one very important issue of NGO funding. Now when NGO funding is concerned, the NGOs are dependent on the domestic and international donors. In the domestic, they depend on to the individual subscribers, individual donors, and they also depend on to the corporate donors. Now guys, when we talk about the NGO, understand this particular thing, that the NGO, okay, it might be receiving funding for the outcomes. For example, let's say an NGO is working in the education sector. So what is an outcome that is expected from that NGO? That it should promote the education. Now how it will promote the education? They need to provide books to the people. They need to provide that teacher training. They need to provide they need to teach the students directly. Fine, in curriculum design they can help. All these particular thing is there. Now this is the core operation of NGO. For example, education related NGO, core operation is to provide books, to provide education, all these particular things. But apart from that, NGOs have other options, other works also. There is the back-end team in the NGO. There is the administration into the NGO. Now for this back-end team, for the administration, there are the administrative expenses that are to be done. So whenever we talk about an NGO, there could be the core expenses of an NGO which they are doing on their core activity, and then there are the administrative expenses of an NGO which they are doing at the back end. Now both of these expenditures are important. If sufficient administrative expenditure they will not do, they cannot do even their core work. Now understand this particular thing, guys, that when we talk about the NGO's administrative cost, they need to pay the rent, they need to pay electricity charges, there are the technology charges, human resource. Now everybody who is working into the NGO, they are not working freely, they have to be given salary. So human resource costs are there. Now when we talk about the NGO's financial health, there is a very poor financial health of the NGOs. Many a times the NGOs are not receiving the money for their administrative purposes, for their administrative expenses. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the funding that is coming for the social sector, it has been found that there are the three types of funders. Now understand, we are talking into the corporate sense. So corporate, they donate the money to the NGO for their dedicated works. Now when the corporates are there are three type of ideologies under which the corporates give the funding to the NGOs. Number one, there are the program proponents. Number two, there are the adaptive funders, and number three are the organization builders. So corporates, there are three type of corporates, and three type of corporates in terms of the funding that they are providing to the NGO. Let's understand them one by one, don't worry. Number one, the program proponents. Now corporates are giving funding to the NGO and they are only concerned about the outcome. For example, we gave you this much money, how much books you distributed to the students, how much toilets you constructed into the schools, okay, or how much benches you made available into the government schools. So number one, corporate funding is of program proponent type, where they are just concerned about the outcome that is coming. Then second is the adaptive funders. Now the adaptive funders, they are not rigid that only their money should go for the core expenditure. Rather, they also provide indirect cost support also. They provide money to NGO. They say that, okay, use let's say 80% of money in providing some aid to the students. Let's say 20% money you can use for your administrative expenses also. And then the third type of the funding that comes, the third type of funders, they are called as the organization builders. Now what are these organization builders? They invest in a social sector, okay, they want to bring a long-term change. They are not concerned about 1 year. For example, they are not say that okay, we are giving 1 crore rupees to you and show us that okay, what assets you have built in that 1 crore rupee in this year. No, they want to build the capacity into the long term. For our long horizon, they will give money and they want to change the entire sector. For example, one NGO is working in education sector, so they want to change the entire education sector. Now for that particular thing, some 10-year, 15-year horizon is needed. So they are the organization builders. Now when we talk about in India, the corporate provides the money to the NGO as a part of CSR, corporate social responsibility. Now guys, in India Companies Act, there is a section 135. Under section 135, the CSR, some percentage of profit, okay, 2% of profit, 2% profit is to be contributed to the CSR by some specific corporates, not all the corporates, some specific corporates, okay. They have to provide a part of their profit as a CSR. Now what happens when we talk about India? In India majorly the funding that is coming, it is in the category of the program proponents. They just give the money and they ask the accountability of NGO that okay, what you did in this particular year, how much benches got distributed, how many books got distributed. Okay, they are not concerned about the indirect cost and all these kind of things. Now understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the CSR in India, recently what has happened, CSR law got amended in 2021 and a substantial financial penalties have been imposed for the non-compliance. Okay, it has been provided that if any corporate will not be able to comply the CSR expenditure, there will be the penalties, there will be the fines on that. In order to fulfill that particular thing, now the CSRs are just giving the money to the NGO and they want a result. They don't see, they are not concerned into the long-term impact of that particular investment that is going on. Now when we talk about guys, the Indian corporates, 90% of the Indian corporates are the small 90% of the corporates that are giving the CSR, they are the small corporates. Now understand, they spend less than 50 lakh rupees annually on the CSR. Now understand, there is one provision into the Companies Act. Is that if your CSR expenditure is less than 50 lakh rupees, you don't need to constitute the CSR committee. You don't need to constitute a separate CSR committee. Now the CSR committee is the one which sees that where the money will go, how that money is being used and all that thing. So they don't need to make that. Now 90% of the corporates that are donating are coming in this particular category. So what they have done, rather than having some specific committee, they have given the CSR responsibilities to their human resource department, and that human resource department is just doing a kind of a lip service. Is it clear or not? Now basically they are not hiring the professionals in this particular social sector, they are just doing this particular lip service kind of a thing. Now understand, there have been some positive examples from that the corporate can learn. There have been some good examples. For example, there is an example of ASK Foundation. Now ASK Foundation is a CSR wing of the ASK group. Now this particular group has shifted their focus to multi-year grant making approach. Now what they are doing, they are providing the money to the NGO and they are saying specifically that 20% of the money they can use for the indirect cost. For example, let's say NGO is being provided 1 crore rupee, they can spend 80 lakh rupees for core operation, fine, and 20 lakh rupees they can use for their administrative expenditure. This is something that is happening. Now guys, by this particular thing, what happens, the NGO's capacity is being built into the long term, and in the long term it will be able to bring more of an impact. Fine, this is something that is happening. Now guys, not many CSR funders think this particular way right now. Okay, so basically this is a good example of the ASK that can be replicated by the other corporates also when they are giving the funding to the NGO. So understand guys, in this particular article we have taken the takeaway that NGOs receive a lot of money from the corporate, but the corporate's ideology while giving this particular funding could be of three types. Okay, there could be the program proponents which just provide money and are concerned about okay that what you did about that money. Adaptive funders, they provide the money but also flexibility of indirect cost. And then there are the organizational builders, they build the viability of an organization into the long term. They focus on long term impacts in one particular sector. This is something that has been there. Now moving to the next article. How ideology muddled inflation control in India. Okay. Now understand this particular thing, guys, that what has been the case. Recently, the inflation has been very much high. And this particular article talks about the inflation control in India. So therefore, this article will be important in GS paper number 3, issues related to the Indian economy. Okay. Now, what has happened recently, the inflation has been very much high, and the governor of the Reserve Bank of India said that in India, the inflation rate will be brought within 4% limit within 24 months. Okay. Now understand that when we talk about, guys, the inflation in India, we follow the philosophy of inflation targeting. We follow the approach of inflation targeting. What does this inflation targeting means? It means that the inflation needs to be kept into the band of 2 to 6%. Minimum inflation 2% and maximum 6%. This is the band. Now understand this particular thing, that actually the Urjit Patel committee mentioned that inflation in India needs to be the 4% plus minus 2%, 4% plus minus 2%. It means that 4% is ideal, but it can go 2% less, that is up till 2%, and it can go 2% more, that is up to 6%. So ideal range is 4%. Okay, so here we want to bring inflation, and in 24 months the inflation will come in this particular range. It simply means that for the next next few years, the inflation will be out of the bound. Okay, now it is something that has been provided. Now, guys, understand that when we talk about the inflation, we have focused on inflation control, inflation targeting. Now this particular approach we have learned from the West. Understand this particular thing, that there has been Anglo-American economies. There have been the Anglo-American economies. Okay. Now, basically, you might be knowing about the depression of 1929. The Great Depression of 1929. Now, before the 1929 depression in the USA's economy was being driven by the free market economics. Now, the idea of the free market economy was championed by Milton Friedman. So in this Milton Friedman's idea, the idea of the free market economy, it was very clearly provided that the government should not interfere in the economy too much. Fine, the private sector, the capitalist should be taking most of the economic decisions. Government should not interfere. Government should leave the economy alone. This was something that was going on. But when in 1929, the Great Depression came, at that point of a time, Keynesian principle evolved, or the Keynesian economics evolved. Here it was provided, no, this approach is wrong. Here it was provided that capitalist economy would require sometimes the socialization of investment. What it means? It means that most of the economic decisions will be taken by capitalists, but sometimes government has to actively intervene. It was provided that sometimes government have to shoulder the burden of maintaining the demand in economy. For example, in the depression, what happened? The demand went very much less. Growth was not there into the economy. So the state has to intervene. What state need to do? State will pump the money in economy. Why? Because the private sector right now is not able to invest. So state will pump the money. So this is something that is the role of a state that was envisaged. This is something that happened. Now, guys, this Keynesian principle continued to work. Okay. And what happened around 1970s, oil shocks came. Now, at that point of a time, what happened, guys? The oil, basically the OPEC, that is the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries, they reduced their output. Okay, and many of the countries, particularly the USA, they were not able to receive their oil consignments, and at that point of a time, their economy again started to starve. There was the economic shock that came. At that point of a time, what happened? The demand reduced. There was a stagflation that came. That was the combination of inflation and stagnant output. Economy was not doing good. Stagnation also came. Okay. During this particular thing, what happened? Again, the revival of pre-Keynesian economics came. Again, it came that the capitalists should be allowed to take the economic decisions. Is it clear or not? Here, the idea came that the public policy should not target unemployment. Okay, because if you target unemployment, it could destabilize the economy, and the government should focus on inflation alone. You should not focus on unemployment, should focus only on the inflation, because if inflation will not be controlled, it will be leading to a very big problem. Now, what happened? basically the central banks, okay, all they started to target the inflation, okay, all the started to target the inflation. Now inflation was to be tackled by focusing on to the money supply, how much money is flowing into the economy. By that the inflation will be controlled. So everybody started focusing on that particular thing. Now guys, India also, now what the article is talking about, that India is also following that particular approach. As the West has went for inflation targeting, we are also going for the inflation targeting. But in India the conditions are a little bit different, okay. Will we be able to successful if we just copy the West? This is a kind of a question that we need to ponder upon. We should not copy always the West that has happened. So this is something, that's the issue that's going on, okay. So that is about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Time for a joint space exercise. Now this article will see with respect to the GS paper number 3, space sector, GS paper number 3, space sector, okay. Now basically the article says this thing, that the now guys, understand that the space is developing as a military domain. Space is developing as a military domain. Now what has happened in 2000, there are some developments that have happened in this particular direction. Development number 1, in 2019 USA has started their space forces branch, okay. So USA has developed their Space Force branch. Now their Space Force branch is under the Department of the Air Force, okay. So this is something USA has done. Now when we talk about the India, in India the space sector has been controlled by the civilian agency, that is the ISRO, But in India also there have been certain developments that have happened into the past. For example, in 2019 Mission Shakti was taken by India. Now what is this Mission Shakti? Mission Shakti was a anti-satellite missile test. Now what are these anti-satellite missile tests? So basically, suppose there is a satellite. Now this satellite belongs to an adversary country. You can destroy this particular satellite while the satellite is in its orbit. So this is the anti-satellite technology, that is to destroy a satellite into the orbit. So we have taken up the Mission Shakti, and under the Mission Shakti anti-satellite technologies have been demonstrated by India. Moreover, in 2019 India also conducted the space warfare exercise IND-SpaceX. Now because there was the Chinese threats that were there at that point of a time, this particular exercise has been taken. So basically what is happening, the militarization of space is already happened into the USA, because they have come out with their space force. In India we have carried the Mission Shakti, we have also carried the IND-SpaceX, that is the space exercise. So the militarization of space is going on. At the same time guys, there is one very important development more that has happened. A very important development has happened. What has been the case? Recently India has launched the Tri-Service Defense Space Agency, DSA, Tri-Space Defense Service Agency. Now this Tri-Service Defense Space Agency, it will be a permanent wing that has been established, okay. It has been a permanent wing that has been established, and the basically civil space that was there. Now earlier I told you that the space was controlled by the ISRO. Now from the ISRO, the space sector has been given into the hands of military. Why? Because tomorrow the space can become the arena of conflict. Space can become an area where there could be the wars. So now the Tri-Service wing has been developed. Moreover, Defense Space Research Agency has also been developed, DSRA. Now this DSRA will help the defense develop the space-based weapons for the DSA. So in the space, what kind of weapons are to be used? These weapons will be developed by the DSRA, and these weapons will be given to the DSA, that is the Defense Space Agency. So India is also ready to militarize the space. That is happening. USA has already done that particular thing. Now understand that when we talk about the space sector is the bedrock of modern economy. Now when we talk about guys the modern economy, the GPS, global positioning system, now entire transportation system uses the GPS. Fine, for the transit and for the logistics, the GPS is used. Then after that, telecom networks are today the bedrock of any economy. Then the early warning systems are needed for the disaster, for the natural disasters, tsunami warning, flood warning, etc. Now see, how the telecom works, how the warning and the early warning systems work. All of them work by the satellites, and the satellites are placed in the geo and the LEO orbits. Okay, basically low Earth orbits, geo orbits, they have been placed in. Now we need to protect our satellites. Okay, there could be threat by the Chinese satellite to Indian satellite, so we need to protect our satellites. For that particular thing, we need to have the space wing of military. Okay, so therefore it's very important. Now therefore the time has come that India and USA can come together, and the India and USA can start the joint space military exercise. Now it has been provided that, guys, understand this particular thing. India, I have already provided you, have started the Shakti. India have already taken up the DSA, that is the Tri Services Defense Space Agency. We can now take the support of USA also at the same time. Now understand this particular thing, that it will put India's defense partnership with the USA into a new orbit. Altogether a new trajectory will be given. After that, it will send a strong message to the common adversary. Now who's the common adversary? China is the common adversary of India, as well as China is the common adversary of the USA. So if India and USA can come together into the space sector, it will give a strong message to China. Then after that, basically it will have the effects onto the Quad also, quadrilateral security dialogue. Now in the quadrilateral security dialogue, there is a cooperation that is being done by 4 countries, that is India, Japan, Australia and USA. So USA India cooperation under the Quad will further increase. Then, guys, understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the space has been singled out as a critical area of cooperation. Recently what has happened already, there is, now please focus, there is a Defense Technology and Trade Initiative, DTTI. Fine, again I'll highlight defense technology and space, defense technology and the trade initiative that is there. This has been signed between the India and USA, and under this defense technology and trade initiative, the space sector can be included. Now understand, basically there have been certain low hanging fruits. For example, joint anti-satellite missile test can be taken by India and USA both. Now understand this particular thing, that already India has taken the mission Shakti. I told you that already India has taken the mission Shakti. In the mission Shakti, anti-satellite missile test we have done. Now the USA is also having the similar capability. As both the India and USA have the same capability, that particular thing can be leveraged. Moreover, both countries have also reached on this particular understanding also, that the China is a common enemy. So therefore this had happened. Now after that, there could be certain challenges that will come if such thing will be taken. Now what are the challenges? Challenge number 1, it will provoke our eastern neighbor. Okay, China will be provoked, China will be becoming frustrated. Then the second is that our eastern neighbor can use the western neighbor as a proxy state. Okay, so the China will provide certain capabilities to the Pakistan. Okay, so China might bring the Pakistan in between. Then it will derail the ongoing core commanders dialogue into the Ladakh. Now on the LAC, there's a dispute between the India and China is going on. That development, and to resolve that particular dispute, commander level talks are going on. That particular talk will be derailed. Then the fourth challenge that will come is that the USA cannot be trusted. Okay, at many times the USA has backtracked, so we cannot trust that the USA will continue to support India. And finally, there will be the fast track militarization of space. All the countries will be moving towards the militarization of space sector. That is something that is going to happen. Okay, this is something that is there. Now I will be that is all about this particular article, guys. So these are all the dimensions. Please note down these dimensions that is there. Okay, there was one particular point I would like to elaborate on that. I told you that the India and USA should do the anti-satellite test that's there. Okay, now the test that can both the countries could be done, it would be against a stimulated orbital target that does not create space debris. Okay, now the USA has basically has their official policy that they will be reducing the space debris, the space junk, the space waste that is there. So if we want to destroy a kind of a satellite, we can do it in a stimulated environment, in a very controlled environment. That particular thing can be done. So this is all like this. So that's all about this article. Now we'll move to the next article. Okay, there's one question that has come. Sir, is the optional subject Indian Constitution and Governance in UPSC? Please tell me once. Okay, there is no subject of Indian Constitution and Governance. There is the subject of Public Administration. So in PubEd, there is Constitution and Governance that comes. Okay, now the hits and the misses of the TAN the hits and the misses of TANGEDCO's tariff petition. Now guys, you don't need to go too much into the detail in this particular article. What this particular article is talking about, this particular article is simply saying that the Tamil Nadu Generation and Distribution Corporation Limited, okay, they have submitted a petition where they say that every year they will increase the electricity tariff by 6%. Okay, every year they will be increasing the electricity tariff by 6%. Now when we talk about this particular article is talking about that how much tariff will be increased by that particular thing, okay, what will be the per unit electricity price and all those things. Now that all not at all important by this particular article, okay. However, just we'll see in brief the implication of this particular step. So in that particular brief preposition only you need to understand this particular article, no need to go line by line, okay. So always guys understand this particular thing, that some articles are read to be read line by line, and additional analysis also to be done as we have done in this particular article, but some articles are just to be seen on a periphery. So this particular article will see with respect to the infrastructure sector, and within the infrastructure, power infrastructure, GS paper number 3. So basically what the article talks about, that the Tamil Nadu has proposed a petition that they want to increase the tariff of electricity 6% every year. Now why they want to do this particular thing? First of all, understand this particular thing, that electricity distribution companies are facing a lot of pressures, they are facing a lot of losses. So in order to tackle that particular losses, to tackle the debts that are there, long pending payments that they have to make to the generators, they need money, and by increasing the tariffs they will mobilize that particular funding. Moreover, this particular thing will also be good for the consumers. What happened now, when every year annual increase is not there into the charges, after 4-5 years some steep hike into the tariff is being done, and that particular thing puts one time burden, a lot more burden onto the consumer. So if every year 6% increase will be there, then there will be no erratic steep hikes that will be there. So the consumers will also be satisfied by that particular thing. However guys, understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the distribution companies, the distribution companies have to pay a lot of money to the coal power generators such as the NTPC, etc. We need to focus more on to the long term cheaper sources of energy, and for that particular thing we need to focus more on that. We need to bring electricity from the rooftop solar plants, green hydrogen, wind capabilities. They are something that has to be visualized. And Tamil Nadu had a very long coast, they have a very favorable kind of favorable geography for the solar power, for the wind power. So they need to install that. They should not be dependent on to the coal power fire plants. So that is something which they need to do. They need to have an integrated energy policy which can address the environment as well as the economy at the same time, and at the same time the cheaper energy can be provided. So these are certain things that are to be taken care of. Okay, so this is guys the only substance that you need to read in this particular article. Not even one line more is to be read, because then that is a very Tamil Nadu specific kind of an article, and such things are not needed for our UPSC exam. Now moving to the next article. Cabinet approves policy on leasing railway land. Now guys, again this particular article will be used in GS paper number 3, infrastructure sector. Okay, now guys understand this particular thing, that when we talk about what has happened last year, Pradhan Mantri Gati Shakti initiative was taken. Okay, now as per the Gati Shakti initiative, government provided this particular thing, that 100 lakh crore rupees will be invested in the Indian economy to build the robust infrastructure. So to build the robust infrastructure, 100 lakh crore rupees will be invested. Okay, now guys, in that capacity, when we talk about building the infrastructure, road infrastructure, railway infrastructure, port led infrastructure, highways, flyovers, all the infrastructure are to be focused. Now particularly for the railway, this particular initiative has been taken now, and we'll understand this particular article. So what this particular article is talking about, the Prime Minister has approved the revised policy for railway land. Now understand this particular thing guys, that when we talk about the railways have a lot of land packets with them. Now when they have the land, they can give this particular land on lease to the private players. These private players can develop this particular land. They can develop this particular land for cargo. They can develop this particular land as the cargo terminals. Okay, now guys, what are the cargo terminals? Cargo terminals are the facilities where the containers and big cargoes are being handled. So for cargo terminals, the land can be donated. Then the land can be donated for other projects. Are you getting it or not? Fine. So the lot of land is there with the railways. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that the railway gives this particular land. Now earlier, the land policy of the railway that was there, that they were giving the land at the short term leases. Now the new policy that has come, the long term land will be given, long term leases of the land will be given to the private player. For example, now for the cargo related activities, land can be given up to 35 years. Earlier only up to 5 years the land was being given on the lease. Now earlier guys, the very high charges or high tariffs were being charged from the private players whenever they were being given the land. For example, 6% of the land cost, 6% of the land cost was being taken as the tariff. For example, if the land is 100 crore rupees, then 6 crore rupees of tariff was being taken, 6%. Now this particular has been reduced to 1.5% of the market value of the land per annum. Okay, so 6% land values was being taken as a tariff per annum. Now it will be reduced to 1.5%, and the land are being given on long term leases such as the 35 year of lease. Now how this particular thing will help? Now guys, it has been provided that when we will give lease of such land to the cargo use for the long period, okay, the integrated development of infrastructure cargo terminals will happen. Now see this particular thing, when you are giving the land for 35 years, there will be a lot more incentive to invest in that particular land, to invest into the development of that particular land. And by that particular thing, what will happen? The railway infrastructure, the cargo handling capabilities of the railway as a whole is going to get increased. Now it has been provided that into the next 5 years, 300 cargo terminals will be developed. 300 cargo terminals will be developed. How? Government will give the land. Government will give the land for 35-year terms lease. On these particular government land, the cargo terminals will be developed, and these cargo terminals will generate 1.2 lakh employment into the next 5 years. Moreover, by this particular thing, what will happen? More cargo will be attracted into the railways. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that when we today talk about the cargo, it is traveling through roadways by the trucks. Now the cargo movement by truck is expensive, it is polluting. Then when it will be, now if the capabilities of the railways will be developed, more cargo will then develop by the railway, and the logistic cost of the industry will be reduced. Okay, transit cost of the industry will be reduced, and it will provide a lot more benefits. Now guys, whenever these land are to be given to the private players, this particular thing will happen by the transparent and competitive bidding process. So there will be the transparent competitive bidding process to make sure that there is no corruption, such kind of thing that is going in this particular direction. Okay, so guys, this is a very good policy that has come. Please read this particular article, and please add this particular thing in the line of infrastructure reforms that government is taking. Now we'll move to the next article. Inflation is not a red-lighted priority for government right now, says Finance Minister. Now this particular article, just you can see with respect to the GS paper number 3, Indian economy and government's priorities for Indian economy. So basically guys, we understand this particular thing, that inflation for a very long period of time has been high. It has been out of the maximum 6% range of the government. Now even the finance minister had said that inflation is not a priority for the government right now. The government says that priority is the job creation, equitable distribution of wealth. Fine, these are the priorities. Now understand this thing, that guys, when the lockdown came, with the lockdown, there was the economy that went down. Now at that point of a time, basically government pumped a lot of money in order to revive the economy, and when a lot of money was pumped, what happened? The money supply increased. And guys, you know this particular thing as a very basic principle of economy. When the money supply will be increased, the inflation will go high. Now in the past, as government has pumped a lot of money, the money supply in the economy increased, and by that money supply, the inflation became high. Okay, now government is in a dilemma. If government will control the inflation, growth will go down, and if government will want to focus on growth, inflation will go out of control. So you need to make a choice, want to bring growth or want to control inflation. So government has said that we want to bring more growth, we want to bring more growth, inflation is not a priority right now. This is something that has happened. Beyond that, nothing is given in this particular article. Okay, and now we'll move to the next article. Okay, guys, actually we have seen this particular article yesterday also, that this I think yesterday or day before yesterday also we have seen this particular article, that with respect to the secularism, there is one issue that is going on, that is the wearing of hijab by the girl, by the Muslim students. Now we have seen that into the last year 2021 there was a controversy where some of the girls wearing the hijab, they were not allowed to enter into the schools in the Karnataka. Then the Karnataka High Court gave a judgment, and Karnataka High Court said that when we talk about the hijab is not an essential religious practice, and therefore if the school wants, they might ban the wearing of hijab into the school. So that particular case is now reached to the Supreme Court. Okay, and in that particular thing the argument is going on. Now understand that the Supreme Court has not given any judgment up till now. These arguments are being given, and these arguments are being reported into the Hindu newspaper every day. So you don't need to go and see every day what arguments, every day what thing has happened. Just an overview is more than sufficient in this particular direction. So basically guys, here it has been provided that when we talk about the secularism in India, what is the brand of secularism that is being followed in India? There could be two types of secularism, that is the positive secularism and the negative secularism. Now when we talk about the negative secularism, in negative secularism, no religion is provided any kind of support by the state, and the West negative secularism is something which is prominent into the West. And when we talk about Indian secularism is a positive secularism. In West, negative secularism is prevalent. In India, the positive secularism is prevalent. What is the positive secularism? In positive secularism, we don't we are not indifferent to the religions, rather we provide the support to all the religions at the same time. We provide the support to all the religions at the same time. So you can just read this particular point. So the point says that India believes in positive secularism. India believes in positive secularism based on tolerance of all religion, faith, and not negative secularism, which is followed in countries like France, which holds a display of religion in public as offensive. Fine, we don't consider any religion or the portrayal of religion as offensive. We give the ecosystem for all the religions. In this capacity, it has been said that the constitution itself says that all the religions have to be treated with equal respect. Even there is a judgment, that is the Aruna Roy judgment, and in the Aruna Roy judgment it has been provided in there cannot be any discrimination along with the religion. So therefore the petitioners are saying that the women should not be disallowed to wear the hijab, they should be allowed to wear the hijab. Here it has been said that the state should restrict the religion only in three circumstances. Number one, to protect the public order, morality and health. Number two, to protect another fundamental right. Okay. And number three, if the restriction is authorized by the law made to regulate or restrict an economic, financial or political or secular activity. Now when the wearing of hijab, it is not impacting any public order. Secondly, it is not coming in conflict with other fundamental rights. And third, there is not any law which is banning this particular kind of a thing. So therefore India follows the positive secularism, and in this particular positive secularism the students should be allowed to dress whatever they want. This is one argument that has been given, but up till now any judgment has not been coming on this particular case. So this is guys all about this particular article. Okay, and again as I told you, you don't need to go in deep because judgment has not come. This is an argument that is being going on every day. So that's all guys about the today's newspaper analysis, and with this we come to an end to the newspaper analysis. Guys, I hope that you are able to understand all the articles, and most importantly every class I say that the art of understanding which articles are to be seen and which articles are not to be seen, and what attention is to be given in what article, that is a very important art for a UPSC aspirant. Okay, so that is all for today. Now we'll meet tomorrow, and till then guys, if you have liked the video, please do hit the like button, and please do leave your lovely comments, as it is a very important motivation for us, and please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. Now we'll meet tomorrow. Till then, take care of yourselves. Thank you.